Have you ever been scrolling on your phone or maybe walking past a street artist and seen a drawing that honestly looked like it was about to leap right off the page? Like you could literally just reach out and grab it? Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going on a narrated journey through 7 amazing 3D drawing secrets. We're talking mind-bending techniques that artists use to make totally flat, two-dimensional sketches look unbelievably real. It's a fascinating look at art, biology, and perception, and trust me, it is full of twists and surprises. But before we get into the specific techniques, we really have to ask ourselves this core question. How exactly does a flat line jump off the page? Because here's the secret. This isn't wizardry. It's not magic. And it definitely doesn't rely on expensive digital tools or fancy software. What we're really talking about here is a masterclass in tricking the human brain. See, your brain is hardwired to process the world in 3 dimensions. And artists, well, they figured out exactly which visual cues to hijack so your mind just fills in the depth, the volume, and the space where there is absolutely none. It's an optical illusion in its absolute purest, most wonderful form. Section 1. Manipulating space and depth, bending the canvas. Okay, let's dive into this with trick number 1. This is the absolute foundation of bending flat space, forced perspective. It's a technique that literally tricks your eyes into seeing depth where there physically isn't any. So how do they do it? By doing exactly what the real world does to our vision, making distant objects appear smaller and nearby objects appear way larger. By strictly following these scaling rules on a flat piece of paper, the artist is essentially forcing your brain to interpret distance. You're not just looking at a small square next to a big square, your brain insists, absolutely insists, that you are looking at a real 3D scene extending deep into the background. It's an incredibly powerful way to build the framework of a realistic world. Once that perspective is locked in, artists move to trick number 2, layering, because setting up the perspective, that's really just step 1. To make that space actually feel real, professional artists don't just, draw a dark outline and color it in. They build their drawings in very deliberate, chronological layers. First, they start with incredibly light pencil sketches, just to map out the geometry of the thing. Next, they gradually, painstakingly add darker values to build up the forms. And finally, they finish with highlights. This step-by-step layering process is what creates genuine depth, texture, and a truly realistic 3D appearance. You're essentially sculpting on the paper, building layer by layer, from the bones all the way up to the shiny surface. Section 2. Mastering light and shadow, bringing shapes to life. And this brings us to trick number 3, the shadow illusion. A drawing can instantly snap into reality with just the right shadows. It's actually amazing how achieving the right balance of dark and light areas lets artists manipulate gravity itself. Notice how careful shading makes a simple shape appear to float magically above the page or look like it's heavy and sinking deep into the surface. It's wild how dependent our brains are on shadows to tell us where objects actually live in physical space. Without shading, a circle is just a circle. But add some shading, suddenly it's a heavy sphere resting solidly on a table. Building right on that, trick number 4 is the floating object effect. Take a look at the left side. We have an object drawn with perspective, sure, but without a soft cast shadow underneath it. It just looks like a flat geometric design stuck to the paper, right? But now, look at the right side. By combining that exact same accurate perspective with a soft cast shadow strategically placed underneath, the illusion suddenly comes alive. The shape is anchored in space, but simultaneously hovering right above the surface of the paper. Your eye sees that shadow, and your brain instantly, almost subconsciously, calculates the distance between the object and the floor. It's honestly incredible how just a tiny smudge of gray lead completely changes our perception of reality. Trick number 5 involves reflective highlights, and honestly, this is where a really surprising twist happens, because so often it's the absolute smallest details that make the biggest difference in 3D drawing. Think about tiny white highlights placed on materials like glass, metal, water, or anything shiny, really. A single well-placed dot or streak of pure white can transform a simple drawing into something that looks wet, metallic, or just incredibly real. It's that final little polish that fully tricks your eye into believing light is physically bouncing right off the object on the page. Section 3. Mind-bending optical illusions. Breaking the brain. Now we're getting into the really crazy stuff. Trick number 6 is the famous hole in the paper illusion. Have you ever seen a drawing where it looks like a literal chasm drops right through the center of a sketchbook? It's mind-blowing, and it relies on a very surprising recipe of visual ingredients. First, artists use severe perspective lines, converging inward to suggest this super steep depth. Second, they apply intense dark shading that gets blacker and blacker the deeper the hole goes, simulating this abyss where light just can't reach.
And finally, they add cracked paper effects right around the edges to ground the illusion in the physical reality of the page itself. When you combine these elements, it completely fools your brain into believing that flat piece of paper has real, dangerous depth. And finally, we reach trick number 7, which is arguably the coolest technique ever invented: anamorphic drawing. This is the ultimate twist, guys. Imagine looking at an anamorphic drawing from the wrong angle, say straight on from above. It just looks like a completely distorted, stretched out, unrecognizable mess of lines. It makes absolutely no sense. But when you move your viewing position and lower your eye level to one very specific, mathematically calculated angle, bam! The drawing suddenly snaps together and appears to just pop straight out of the paper, standing upright like it's a real physical 3D object sitting right there on your desk. It is pure optical illusion, relying entirely on the exact vantage point of the viewer to complete the magic. Section 4. The power of a simple line, creating your own magic. You know, the true secret behind incredible 3D drawings isn't expensive art supplies. It's just understanding light, shadow, and perspective. I really want to reassure you here. Every single professional artist who creates these jaw-dropping illusions started in the exact same place, with simple shapes. They didn't have magical pencils or crazy software. They just practiced these foundational techniques every single day. They learned how light bounces, how shadows fall, and how perspective shrinks objects. And by understanding those core concepts, you realize that you already possess everything you need to start bending reality right on your own desk. So go grab your pencil, grab a blank piece of paper, and just start experimenting. Remember, every single amazing 3D masterpiece you've ever marveled at began with one simple line. But before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question. Of the 7 3D secrets we explored today, which one amazed you the most? Was it the crazy precision of an anamorphic drawing? The subtle magic of a tiny white highlight? Or maybe those mind-bending depths of the hole in the paper? Think about how these visual tricks alter the very way you see the world around you. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the art of 3D drawing, and keep exploring the incredible ways we can bend reality with just a pencil and a page.